Every journey begins with a single step. For many, the first step is the greatest challenge. Yet for all, the obstacles, the doubt, and conviction teach us about ourselves. It's these moments in life, a test of our abilities, our mind, when we don't know, but we still proceed, driven by the unspoken, but ignited by the obsession that yields some of life's greatest lessons and rewards. Join me as we explore incredible stories of leaders forging industries, enterprises, and ultimately, themselves. I'm your host, Adam Giery, and welcome to Capital Class. Let's begin.
Classmates, welcome to today's episode. There's a moment happening in American education, one where the old rules are being questioned, where the value of a degree is in transition, employers are hiring for skills, and learners are asking for outcomes, and universities and colleges caught in the middle. But what if there was a better bridge between where education ends and opportunity begins? Today's guest saw this gap and built something for it. A platform designed to connect real learners to real jobs through real work. Practical, hands-on, scalable. From fintech to edtech, from boardrooms to classrooms, they're building something bold, and we're here for it. On today's episode of Capital Class, we are joined by Bharani Rajakumar, founder and CEO of Transfr. Bharani, welcome to the show.
I am thrilled to be here, and thank you very much for that poetic introduction.
Let's start here. This is not your first venture, right? You have built an enterprise in the education market, and now kind of reinventing yourself in that space to start a new business. What brought you back to build a business in this sector, which many have complimented that it's one of the more complex to engage in the marketplace?
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity to share, Adam. Look, I never had a dream or a vision of starting a business. I started high school in 1996 and graduated college in 2004. And I mean, startups were like not that big a thing back then. So I got involved in education for a deeply personal reason. And it was because I wanted to help others have a pathway like the one that I had. So I grew up watching my parents raise a family of 4 on $35,000 a year. And all we had was kind of the dream and the belief in the American dream to kind of motivate us. And for me, it worked out. I ended up working at a bulge bracket investment bank in New York City. But I was keenly aware that opportunity was not accessible to everyone because the middle school and the high school that I went to, probably about 90% of the people were on free and reduced lunch. So it was obvious to me at a young age that you were really lucky if you got access to resources. And if you didn't get access, you were kind of on your own. So I left finance and got into education in 2011 in EdTech after graduating from Carnegie Mellon, and focused on math at the time. Because at that time, STEM where it was all the rage, there was math standards were being raised across the country. And so I was really focused on saying, hey, if we could help people learn these skills and they can get into STEM career pathways. And that company did well. And after that experience, I felt like the job was not finished, right? You asked me what compelled me to kind of stay in the space. And I felt that just because I focused on math, like that really wasn't enough. So I thought what would be better than helping people learn math skills? I thought helping them get their first job, because that's where it all started for me. Like I remember getting my first job, getting my first paycheck, feeling that sense of freedom for the first time. And it was a small paycheck. It was, $5.25 an hour, but like you got to start somewhere. And I think with a job comes dignity, comes freedom, comes responsibility, comes accountability, self-accountability, the most important kind when you're accountable to yourself. And that was kind of the genesis of Transfr.
Let's go from on the landscape view. Education to employment pipeline has rapidly changed. 10 years ago, it was maybe a topic of conversation at your national conference, right? We need to align these two to be better organized to fill the future needs for talent. That's happening now. Maybe not the way it was originally envisioned, but it's happening through channels like yours. Take me through a little bit, even in the last 3 years, of how much evolution have you seen in the marketplace when you think of an employer now looking for skills or an employee looking to, frankly, find a job?
Well, look, I'm sure you heard the expression, as I have, necessity is the mother of all invention. And people have been talking about the change in education and workforce development for decades. But why is it happening right now? Well, there are some very mondo macroeconomic forces that I could not have predicted when I got into the business. Again, I was just trying to make a positive difference, but there's no question that the business benefits from these mega macroeconomic forces. So number one, I think one of the key things that started is baby boomers started to retire in droves to the tune of about 11,000 people per day. And a lot of these folks did do jobs that were in the skilled trades, in manufacturing, which is now advanced manufacturing, in healthcare. And they were leaving at a time when there was not many people to backfill their roles, because for the last 30 to 40 years, most of K12 education was evaluated on how many people you send to college. So the skilled trades wasn't a serious discussion when you were having a conversation about your future. It was college for everyone. So because of that, there weren't a lot of people enrolling in skilled trades programs, which led to a supply and demand imbalance. You had people leaving the workforce because of retirement. You had no one filling those jobs. And so then because of natural economic forces, the wages for those roles go up. And that's what created the opportunity for Transfr. I started the company with the focus of just having this mission of getting everyone on a pathway to upward mobility. And the way that translated was helping everyone get, their first on a career path, their first job on a career path. And so because the skilled trades had this very unique situation where wages were going up, but you did not need a 4-year degree, that created the opportunity to train people and get into the economy in a relatively short period of time without requiring 4 years of education. There's a couple of other big macroeconomic forces that I'll just touch on real fast. One was the cost of higher ed at the same time just kept going up and up and up. And at some point, people said, this is too much. Like, I'm going to pay all this money. I have to take on all this debt, and I have no idea what's going to be at the end of it. So then they started to question, like, is there another pathway? They started to ask for another pathway, individuals. COVID came along and just threw everyone for a loop, shook up the world upside down. All of a sudden, technology just started to become widely adopted in areas where maybe technology wasn't as prevalent. And so you mix all those things together. Now, of course, there's an administration in Washington that is very focused on bringing manufacturing back to America, advanced manufacturing and things like that. And so these are all things I could not have predicted, in 2017, but lo and behold, they definitely move us forward.
You bring up an interesting point about the labor market. And I think it's prescient in that when you and I were in school, we're not that far apart in age, there were kind of two distinct pathways, right? It was college and university. And we'll just call that the gold standard for simplicity, right? It was like, that's what the successful people do. And then there was skills. And even the way skills was presented in high school, when I was in high school, it was like, well, this other group of kids goes to skills. And that dynamic in this labor force has completely changed. And you can even see it with the basic air conditioning repair technicians, right? These are $100,000 job. Mechanics are $100,000 job. And where I think you've fit in so well is you're removing that barrier of how to get that training. And I think companies like yours are starting to see that lift because of it.
Well, yes. And there's one other macroeconomic force that I didn't talk about, and that's and that nobody could have foreseen, and that is the wide scale adoption of artificial intelligence and the speed at which this technology is evolving. And so coupled with the fact that people are leaving the workforce and that not enough people are trained to meet the requirements that employers have, there's this massive macroeconomic force that is displacing a lot of workers. I think the number of software engineer job postings for entry-level software engineers has dramatically declined over the last year. Depending on which report you read, it's declined by up to 50% in some cases. Because, experienced engineers can get very fast, very far by leveraging AI. So the number of software engineers that's needed is fewer. So blue collar job, what was traditionally called blue collar anyway, the plumber, air conditioning repair, all that stuff, all of a sudden it looks very safe. And, how long that will last is, it's a little TBD, because I think AI will probably impact every sector of the economy and every occupation. But you mentioned the word skills, and that's the thing that that's worth thinking a little bit more about, because the question is not, what jobs will be available in the future. I think it's what skills are going to be required to do those jobs. And there will be jobs, right? Like, if you read about the technologies that are being developed today, for example, there are robots that can build houses from start to complete. So that will change the way construction works, but it doesn't eliminate the need for construction. There's paint that can reflect something like, 90% of the heat that's absorbed. And so, we'll still need paint, but like the type of paint that we use will be different. The way energy is created will be different. So one of the things that we focus on at Transfr specifically isn't, hey, let's go train people for a bunch of blue collar jobs. It's how do we create a system in which people can be rapidly trained, defined as, let's say, within a matter of 20 to 50 hours instead of 2 to 4 years, because the pace at which things change is picking up and people will not have 2 to 4 years to learn a skill. they'll need to learn that skill within 3 to 6 months. And then the last thing I would say is the other thing that we focus on is not just the skill development part, but learning is all about confidence too. Like, people have to believe that there's a brighter future. They have to believe that they can learn the skill, because if they don't believe, then they won't take action. They won't be motivated. And the reason we started as a company, we started with virtual reality, was you can very easily put on a headset and you can see what it's like to work in a advanced manufacturing automotive factory, where 90% of the work is done by robots. You can see what it's like to work in aviation. You can see what it's like to do knee surgery. So you can experience a bunch of things before you actually do it in real life and get a sense of what you like and what your capabilities are. So we start with helping people believe in themselves first, because they need to believe in them. They need to believe that they can acquire the skills before they go on that journey.
And from that end, like, are you seeing new areas of the economy, the job economy, the creator economy developing in real time? I mean, if you opened up a book 7-8 years ago, it's like coding. Everyone needs to learn coding. Today, that isn't true, right? I mean, the foundational skills are valuable, but to do the actual writing of code can be done over AI.
Man, you bring up such a fascinating point, because, as you know, like, over the last 30 to 40 years, somebody has gone out there and said, you need to learn this, you need to learn that, right? And coding is the most recent poster child. You need to learn coding. Coding is like literacy. It's as important as reading and writing. And if you don't learn this, then you're going to be unemployable, kind of thing. And I think what you're pointing out is that now people are saying the opposite, that maybe you don't need to learn coding because machines will be able to write code better than you. And that remains to be seen over the coming decade, but we're going to find out real fast. But it kind of tangentially ties to another point. What do kids learn in school? In school, the focus has been on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic, math, right? And I think a lot of people would say, well, how much math do I really need to know? Because I get a lot of support from the computers. And I don't know the last time you wrote an email start to finish, but I don't think I've written an email start to finish in a year, at least a year. Like, I get a draft from AI and I edit it, but I don't write the whole thing. But what skill is absolutely going to be essential for the foreseeable future? Reading. I mean, reading is 100% the foundational skill that you can use to learn all other skills. So I don't think reading goes away anytime soon. It's like a very primitive and basic, like, cognitive function that unlocks a lot of other important areas of your life. But you're probably going to get help with the writing using AI. You're probably going to get help with math using AI. So, if we're talking about, critical skills for life success, one of the things that I don't think it's talked about enough is perseverance. And perseverance is one of the ultimate skills that humans need in order to keep making progress, going forward. And one way we kind of codify that into our experience is we enable people to see their scores when they're learning, how well they're progressing. They can, they get like a medal. They'll be able to get micro credentials and things like that, so they can see that they're making progress and learn that skill of persevering, of trying and not giving up, because you are making progress. And that's probably one of the most important skills that everyone will need in the future, because the dynamics of their environment are going to change so much. The most important thing that you can have in your head is to be motivated to continue to to learn new things.
Are you having to short cycle the time that it takes you to build a course, get a course ready, and get it to market in that partially because the market timing has changed, the speed of this information has changed? I worked at the college system in 2010, and they would submit courses to approve, and it probably took us a year between whatever iterations I had to go back and forth, approval of that process. The market is changing. I mean, not to sound dramatic, but in some cases it's changing by the week, maybe by the day.
Well, the market is definitely changing by the day. But whether, how many programs do you need? That's something that we focus on. So yes, you have to get more proficient at creating relevant job-ready programs in a faster timeline. So, it takes us somewhere between 3 to 4 months to stand one up, to stand up a rapid training program. And that's because our whole premise of what we do is to try to align the programming with the requirements of employers to get on that pathway to upward mobility. The other kind of interesting, maybe tangential point is what's the role of AI in content creation, right? There's a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, a lot of lawsuits around owning IP and things of that nature. I think Disney was the most recent kind of headline just about are we going to allow people to use AI to create IP? We own our IP right now. If people are using AI to create IP, is that really IP? Who owns it? Regardless of where that issue kind of shakes out, what is crystal clear is that when it comes to teaching and learning, quality matters, right? Like, you're not going to become job ready by watching a bunch of TikTok videos. Like, the quality of the instruction really matters. Like, are you learning, how to think and do as an expert? And then, the most important part is doing, right? Because employers pay team members and employees to do things, to get things done, to accomplish goals, not to just think about them. So I think while there are a plethora of AI tools that can create content,
it's a fascinating point.
Content is not a barrier. What you need is very high quality programs with proven results.
Thank you for joining today's episode of Capital Class. If you're interested in joining our next discussion, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Capital Class is a venture with the Strategos Podcast Network. To view the entire lineup of shows, visit strategosgroup.com. I'm Adam Giery. Class is closed.